Is Zion Williamson primed for the best season of his career? Is this the year we finally see him dominate and take over the NBA? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe. We hit 5,000 subscribers. You know what that means. Now we're pushing for 10. Welcome in, everybody. Donnie Freeman joining me. Donnie, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Just over here emoting, just having fun.
Having a good time. So we're talking today. We're talking Zion Williamson and the bizarre New Orleans Pelicans, a very talented team. Mm-hmm. I don't personally see why they keep getting ranked so high, like NBA GMs putting them ahead of certain teams, like our Lakers, teams like that they're ranking them ahead of. The Pelicans have a lot of talent, not a lot of depth though, in terms of just the roster balance is a bit off in terms of this Pelicans team. But if Zion Williamson can get to the level that we think he can, maybe that's all that matters. This was from Shams Charania of ESPN. That's going to take some getting used to. Shams Charania said he worked on Zion. He worked with the Pelican staff all summer, and that was very important for him. That was very important for the Pelicans. That's not something he's done in past off seasons. There hasn't been a single NBA off season where he's come into training camp and looked this dominant in the eyes of the Pelicans. He's been all over the court too. This role that they're going to play him in, he'll be a hybrid player. He's going to play the 4, maybe some 5. So when Zion came into the NBA, like he was the next big thing. And I don't think it's a hot take to say he has not lived up to those expectations. And a lot of that has been his availability has not been there. But the top end talent level is certainly there for him. He is absolutely incredible when he's on the floor. Donnie, is this it? Is this finally the true breakout? He's going to get to that top tier status year for Zion Williamson?
I'm really hoping so, because we have not seen him reach the heights that he should have reached this far. And he's still young. It's not like he's 28 or something. But I definitely think that up until now, he hasn't lived up to the hype. And some of that's been injury issues, weight issues. Maybe those two things go hand in hand. Off court issues. There's just been a lot with Zion. And the thing with him is that you would see it in spurts. Like Zion would come out and just dominate, and then he's injured again. And you would see it in spurts, and he looks amazing. So I'm very hopeful and optimistic for him. And I think this is where the Pelicans are coming from. And maybe even some people that are ranking them highly, it's twofold. It's, you got DeJounte Murray, right? That's a big piece. Sure. And then it's the optimism around Zion. He's coming into camp in shape. There's been some images of him over the course of the summer, and he does look really good. I am worried about the Zion health thing, because it's starting to feel, because it's been the last few years they've been showing us and saying he's in shape and stuff like that. It's starting to feel a little bit, this is a bit of a stretch, so don't
I know where you're going.
Don't kill me for it. It's starting to feel a little bit like the Ben Simmons shooting thing.
Oh no,
I don't work out, all that stuff. But I'm hoping that this is because he should be and is and has flashed the potential to be amazing for them. And I think that if Zion comes in and he looks like himself or better than he's looked in the past, he could be extremely dominant for this team.
Yeah, I mean, he has the ability to dominate. My concern is, look at his rookie year numbers. 22 and a half points, 6 boards, 2 assists. Look at his numbers last year. This is now, he's got 5 years under his belt in the NBA, 4 seasons, missed 1 due to injury, but 22.9 points, 5.8 rebounds. Aside from a big uptick in assists, 5 assists last season, he's kind of putting up the same numbers. Now, he can be breathtaking. He can be absolutely dominant when he's out there. He's just about unstoppable when he gets going to the basket. His touch around the rim is phenomenal. Obviously, his strength he's incredible. But do we finally see him take that step forward? Played 70 games last season, and that's my big question, right? He played 70 games last season. That's a lot. That's the most he's ever played by a pretty good amount. So what would it look like for him to hit the next level? Because I don't think we can just tie it to games played anymore, because he played 70 games. So best case, he plays in 75. That's 5 more games. So if he's truly in the best shape ever, what are we going to see?
Well, I think if you look at the shot diet from him in those 2 in between years, he had 26 points per game the year prior, didn't play that many games. He only played 29, but he did play the second most of his career, his second year in the league at 61. And that was a shortened season. So he played most of that season, right? That one was the 21 season. I think they only played like 60, 70 games or something like that, 72 games, I believe, that season.
Yeah.
So he played most of that season. So at 61 out of 70 something, put up 27 points per game in his second year. But if you look at the field goal attempts and percentage last year, that's the worst season percentage wise of his career. It's not a huge dip, but at its peak, he was giving you 61%. He gave you 57 last year. The three ball comes and goes. The volume isn't very high, so it is what it is. You could pretty much write it off. But look at the attempts and the finishes at the 2-point. You're getting 14, 15, 16 in that range. But again, not as efficient as before. Still elite efficiency, but that's what matters for Zion. And then also the free throw shooting. I think there's multiple areas where if he can get back to finishing at a 60% clip, maybe bring up the three ball with a couple more attempts. Maybe he gets to 33, 34% with, 3 attempts per game, things like that. He's got the ball handling. He's explosive. He's athletic. I think that Zion, he'll get an uptick in his assists like you brought up. But the main thing with Zion is that I would be concerned if he's playing, center, like they mentioned earlier, is with the rebounding, because he's not been a very driven rebounder up to this point in his career. That's the one stat that I look at and I'm like, this is a bit of an anomaly for him. But in terms of offense, I think that just him having the ball in his hands more, because even last season, if you look at the distribution of scoring for that team, it was pretty spread. So like Zion, they didn't need him to give them more than 22, 23 points per game. Whereas in some of the seasons past, they probably did. But I look at that rebounding as more of a concern for this team and the way that he needs to be more driven there. But in terms of he himself, I think that we're going to see, personally, I think we're going to see 27, 26 points per game again this season.
Well, especially he's going to need to be able to rebound the basketball if he has to play the 5, which that's the other thing with this Pelicans team. But before we get to that, before we get to the rebounding, here's a thought that I've got. Zion Williamson should be thanking God for Victor Wembanyama, because it is taken, because now all of the pressure is off of Zion, because there's a new next big thing, and he's here and he's great and he's unreal. I mean, you think about it, Zion, we've never seen a guy built quite like Zion that can play at the level that he can, right? I mean, just the amount of just muscle on this man is unreal. And for him to be able to be successful in the NBA, it's incredible. His athletic gifts are amazing. And that's part of what drew attention to Zion Williamson. Well, now you've got a dude who is 11 feet tall, apparently, in Victor Wembanyama, not literally, but Wemby comes in and he's got insane physical attributes too, in a very, very different way. But he is just as much, if not more, I think, of a draw than Zion Williamson, because of that insane feeling that you're witnessing something special every time you see him play. You're witnessing something that you've never seen before. That was the feeling we had for Zion. Now the spotlight, all the attention, it's over on Victor Wembanyama. And now Zion, with the peace and quiet in New Orleans, not having that spotlight on him anymore to be the next big thing in the NBA, now I think is when he can really show out and not have all of that pressure placed upon him. But I did mention the center position. Oh boy, the Pelicans don't really have a center. I mean, you've got Daniel Tice, who I like. I like Daniel Tice a lot, but he's a backup big in the NBA. He's 6'8". He's a backup big in the NBA. It's just what he is. I know what he did for the German national team, but that's not what he is in the NBA. He's a backup big. So Daniel Tice is really the only big on your roster besides Yves Missi, who is a rookie and a project. They don't really have a center. So now there's this idea going around that Herb Jones, Zion's going to get minutes at the 5, but 6'7" Herb Jones is going to start at center for the Pelicans this season. Donnie, this is part of why I don't understand why the Pelicans keep getting ranked so highly. I like their players. I like Herb Jones. I like Trey Murphy III. I like Brandon Ingram. I like DeJounte Murray. There's a lot of guys. There's talent on this team, but the pieces, they don't fit. They don't fit. In an unforgiving Western Conference, you're going to need Zion to go nuclear so that the fit doesn't matter so much. Because Herb Jones is a great wing defender, but is he a center? No. This just reeks of desperation to me from the Pelicans.
Yeah, they don't really have options, like you said. So they kind of have to play these forwards at the center position. I think that it's kind of interesting. It's one of those things where it's like semantics is if they're both starting, okay, well, who's the center? Is it Zion? Is it Herb?
Sure.
It's like, it's okay, whatever you say. Doesn't really matter all that much. But I think that if he actually is the center and defending centers, I think that's a misutilization of him. He's not big enough to guard several centers in the league. I'll have a comment on that in a second, though, because I think that the way the league is now, you can maybe get away with it on some teams. But he's just better as a wing defender anyway. And Zion is the opposite. Zion is huge, and he's not a great wing defender or perimeter defender. So that just, if he is the guy that is slotted that way and is played that way, then that I think is a misutilization of Herb and his talents as one of the best perimeter defenders in the league personally. But like I said, I do think there are some teams you could maybe get away with this against, but you are going to get absolutely bludgeoned against Joel, against Jokic, against even the thing is, like, even like mid-tier centers like
Nurkic.
Jonas or Nurkic, they're gonna just eat you alive, like, because this is very, very scary, right? And so I think that the optimism piece of it, like overall as a whole for this team, is what I talked about earlier. But I think if you're trying to play Zion or Herb, again, semantics, Zion at the center, it's more about the offensive side. You're gonna look to have a very high-end, high-octane running up and down offense, and Zion with the ball in his hands is actually devastating. He is a devastating ball handler, creator. I think that's where they're looking at this from. It's just that I don't know what the plan is on the defensive side of the court, but it's the classic big versus small ball matchup. That's what they're going to go for. I mentioned off camera to you that I think it reminds me of some other teams. Like, for example, it's not the same play style, but the Warriors, when they have Draymond at the 5, they're very, very small, but they've been successful with that. Or this is a funny one, but the thing that the Rockets tried to do a couple of years ago, where they started Russ and PJ Tucker was their center, and they got rid of Clint, and it doesn't typically end well in some of these cases. And I'm not really sure how that looks on the defensive side, but I do think their offense will be, if it's used the right way and adjusted the right way for this deficiency, it'll be really good. But I think that this team, they've got a glut of just perimeter players, and I don't understand that from that aspect. They were clearly hoping to trade Brandon maybe for a big or something like that to kind of make the pieces fit a little bit better, but they were unable to do so. So now they're stuck here, and they already executed a guard trade, bringing in Murray, who's, again, I like him a lot. Nice fringe all-star player, going to help this team and, help them a ton. I think with him, they're going to play just awesome on both sides, personally, in terms of like perimeter defense, getting to the basket, getting downhill. I love that pairing with him on this team, but it's just, they just need another big center, because if you're not playing these guys at the center, it's basically, unless you're giving Missy some minutes, which they should, to try to develop their guy, it's basically only Daniel Tice there. And I like him as a nice hustle guy, floor spacer. He's just not a bruiser, which is what they need. So
yeah, it's a tough spot to be in. I think the Pelicans ultimately are settling on, we don't have a center. Really, we don't have a guy that we could start. So let's just start our 5 best players. Let's just say, forget it. Screw positions. We're just going to start our 5 best players and see what happens. And that's their plan until they can find a center. They've tried this summer. They didn't find them. There's other teams that need centers too. The center market has been very different this summer than it's been in years past. And teams have had trouble finding the centers. And I think centers are starting to become back in vogue in the NBA, but they did not find their guy. And so we'll see. Herb Jones out there at the 5, Zion out there at the 5. I don't know, kind of a mess in terms of how the pieces all fit together right now in New Orleans. Plenty of talent though. And like I said, the saving grace for this team could be if indeed Zion hits that next level, if Zion becomes that full tilt superstar that we've been expecting from him. If he becomes that, then maybe none of this stuff matters. Otherwise, this Pelicans team, hey, start Herb Jones at center, it's totally going to work. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would go that far. They need to go find somebody on the trade market. But yeah.
I was going to say, I think that they have one other potential avenue that's pretty interesting. And
what's that?
It's the off chance that Missy is further along than we think. That could be interesting for them, because he could slide in. I don't know if he's immediately going to be a starter, but if he gets to the point where he's playing 25 minutes a game, then all of a sudden you don't really have this. It doesn't matter who you're starting. It matters the different combinations throughout the game. And maybe you start him in spots versus certain matchups. But if he is further along than we think, that's a little bit of a something in their cap there. And because I don't think we're projecting him to get many minutes this year. And that's the problem. Yeah. So maybe they drafted their guy, and we'll see what happens with that.
We'll see. We'll see. Everybody, let us know in the comments down below what you think about Zion Williamson, his upcoming season, and the Pelicans. Crazy idea. Herb Jones at the 5. Let me know what you think about that as well. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.